So, I love to read strange and obscure books, and I think I have found some real diamonds in the rough before. Usually my strategy is just to go on Amazon, search under the name of one of their popular independent publisher clients, and then add a keyword that I think will yield funny results. In the past, I've searched creepypasta characters, the word hacker in the romance category, and now and then I'll just plug in blatantly copyrighted terms, just to see if I find anything. Usually no luck. Usually if you search terms like Ed Sheeran or Darth Vader or Princess Elsa, you're going to find a lot of journals. On Amazon, people love to take a copyrighted image, print it on the cover of a book, leave the interior of the book completely blank, and sell it as a journal. That's illegal! But I doubt they sell that many, and nobody's cracking down on it, so it just clogs up all the search results and makes my life so much harder. So this time, I guess I was feeling lucky, and I searched Kylo Ren. I'm scrolling through, and it's a million coloring books and journals, and then suddenly a novel pops up. I get really excited that it's a fanfic, and I click it, and I'm like, wait a second, this isn't a fanfic, this is an original book. What was this doing in the search results for Kylo Ren? But wait a second, I start reading the description, and some things start to sound a little familiar. Black Moon Rising is an original science fiction romance novel set in a universe where humans have taken to the stars and coexist in a vast galaxy with a bunch of humanoid alien species. It's the story of a girl who comes from a nowhere sand planet but possesses mysterious magical powers. She is connected by some kind of magical energy to a black-haired warrior working for a sinister political power. So let's be fair here. Science fiction is not exactly the realm of creativity. I'm not saying that it can't be or that it shouldn't be, but it's not always. It has its tropes, it always has, and Star Wars didn't exactly invent the wheel. So if you see evil space empires or laser guns or hyperspace, you don't get to just assume that somebody's ripping off Star Wars. What I'm saying is I'm pretty lenient. And it has to be really egregious to trigger my alarm system. You're probably wondering how egregious this is. There's a little prologue page before the proper book begins, which, for no reason at all, I guess I'll present it like this. In the early 24th century, mankind took to the stars. Countless colonies were established on countless habitable planets. The Commonwealth of Planets was forged to maintain peace and civility amongst all races. 1,000 years of prosperity and harmony followed, where humans and other life forms lived alongside one another, unified by their core beliefs. Corruption poisons even the calmest waters, though. A group of planetary leaders formed an alliance of their own and deemed the free will of the people to be dangerous, and so the construct was born. Soon the Commonwealth was forced to disband, its leaders executed, its people kidnapped and integrated into the construct army. There are few who refused to bow down to the construct, though. There are still those fighting for equality, liberty, and independence. So, firstly, we have a commonwealth which has enjoyed 1,000 years of prosperity and harmony.
I will not let this republic that has stood for 1,000 years be split in two.
The Commonwealth is an old republic which has been forced to disband, and all of its supporters have gone underground to form some kind of rebellion or resistance against the new evil space government. But again, those are broad concepts. Let's get into the meat of the book. The book begins with a graphic sex scene. Wow, that's just like Star Wars 2. I mean, I don't think I can even read, certainly not the first sentence, or much of this chapter without getting demonetized. So I'm gonna hope that it's not super important to the story. Okay, fortunately, The first chapter is entirely italicized and also entirely a dream or a vision that our main character is having. In her dreams, our protagonist is connected to a dark, evil man, and this apparently happens regularly. I have no words to describe him. Curling his thick, dark, wavy hair around my index finger, I study him intensely. He really is beautiful. Murderer, assassin, puppet. He is all of these things, but he is so much more. I allow myself to drift back down into the silent waters of unconsciousness, knowing I won't remember this when I wake. Okay, so these dreams happen regularly, but then she forgets them each time, but then after she's back in the dream, she remembers again that they have happened and knows that she'll forget. Okay, we're like 5 pages in, I'm gonna worry about this later. So it's time to meet our main character, Reza, or Reza. She is an orphan. She actually originally grew up within the Construct, the evil space empire. The Construct laid waste to my home planet and murdered my mother and father. I was taken and shoved into an orphanage on an outpost planet in the middle of nowhere, left to rot with 30 or 40 other children until I reached what the Construct elders termed a useful age. She's then put into a brainwashing program for her entire young life, which they call conditioning.
FN2187 reported to my division, was evaluated and sent to reconditioning.
I barked out their dictum every time it was required of me. One life, one duty, one construct. Then, puberty. That Molotov cocktail of hormones is enough to send any child crazy, even a child who's been brainwashed. Once more, their coding started to make no sense. Why was it necessary to cleanse the disruptive? Why was sterilization of the masses for the good of us all? I didn't want to murder families in their beds. I didn't want to raise cities to the ground. If all it takes to snap out of it is puberty, how do they have any troops left? That was the first time I saw him. Jas Baylar, the boy with the wild wavy hair and the dark soulful eyes. I'd heard of him, of course. Everyone had. The Construct found him alone on an abandoned planet, living amongst the ruins of an ancient city, billions of cycles old. He is? After a while, rumors began to spread around the ship. The Construct was training Jas, training him in a way few others were trained, and he was responding. I guess Jas gets special training because he has magical powers, but he is on the same ship as Reza, and their paths cross occasionally. He must have been 17 then, 4 cycles older than me in his body, but light cycles older in his mind. I didn't see him close again until I was 18, the final day I spent on the starship Invictus. Tell me about that last day, Reza. Tell me again about what happened with Jas Baylar. Across from me in the rusting metal shack I now call home, Seer Darius sits with a nylon mesh mask covering his face. Ever since I found my way to Prius, the Seers have grilled me endlessly about Jas. I don't know why they bother. They're telepaths. They can see inside my head as well as I can see the suns overhead or the rolling sand dunes spreading out for miles and miles in every direction around us. Okay, so she's on a sand planet with rolling dunes and multiple suns. And there are seers, guys in robes who can read minds. I shrug. It was like any other day until it wasn't. We were on our way to the Keptan system. The elders were planning on cleansing a small M-class planet called Darax. My favorite thing of any sci-fi book is the wacky names. The Invictus was barely in range before a barrage of missiles were launched from the planet's surface. We sustained critical damage to nearly every sector. I seized my opportunity. I ran for the hangar bays and I climbed into one of the emergency escape pods. Jas Baylar sees her from a distance and tries to stop her escape shuttle with telekinetic powers, which I guess he has. She also feels like he's trying to enter her mind, but ultimately he just gives up, I guess, and she leaves. So in this extremely natural scene, Reza just happens to be telling her whole backstory to a random character, and I guess she escaped the Construct a few years ago and is no longer a soldier, and now she lives on a planet whose name I got wrong. I think I said Prius because it looked like Prius, the car. It's Purius. The Purians, the natives of the planet, they live in tunnels underground. Reza just lives all alone on the surface. Darius straightens up, shifting with meticulously slow, considered movements. He sighs heavily, making his way toward the tattered cloth covering the entrance into my home. I know I've been asking these same questions of you for a long time now, child, and I apologize for that, he says over his shoulder. I just had to get the exposition out of the way, so you know how it is. My people can glimpse into another's mind. We can normally see visions of the future, but ever since you landed here, none of us have been able to see a thing. We cannot reach inside your mind. Our cues from the future have all but disappeared. Not to sound evil, but it kind of sounds like they should have immediately killed her. You are a bright light, blinding all of those who stand too close to you. Darius smiles. Before you arrived here, a small part of your future was witnessed. You and Jas. You are one and the same. A jolt of dread hammers through me. I'm sorry? The same? I don't think so. The same energy that runs through Jas's veins also runs through yours. You can feel it when you close your eyes, Reza. You know it exists there, dormant and sleeping.
Something inside me has always been there. But now it's awake.
I like this setup where they needed to have some kind of prophecy to inform her that she needs to bond with Jas Balar, but the author also must have realized that it makes your story more difficult to navigate if your characters are all seen and all knowing. So they had to write in this thing where these characters had been able to see the future until a point just prior to the story beginning. So now we get a little Jas perspective. Trying not to read someone's mind is like trying not to poke at a broken tooth. Much easier to go into someone's mind and simply pluck out the information you seek instead of wasting hours torturing it out of them. Oh, so he's an interrogator, and he uses telepathy to do it. Jas is summoned by his superior, a creepy old tall man named Regis. Governor Regis. Governor Regis, he has someone he wishes you to interrogate. Someone? A Commonwealth fighter. He was found wandering out in the flatlands. He was dehydrated and delirious, but now he's recovered enough for questioning. On the command deck, Regis is waiting for me with a young man who's bent double at the waist and bleeding from the nose. The Commonwealth fighter tries to shift back, but Regis beckons a foot soldier to take him out at the knees. The man hits the deck hard. He knows something, Regis says, flicking his hand at the fighter. Get it out of him before he bleeds to death. He marches out of the room. As soon as the doors close behind Regis, I turn to the remaining men and stare at them. My eyes sear into their skin. I continue to stare until they slowly begin to back away and then hurry out of the room. That's a neat trick, the fighter says, groaning. He spits blood out onto the metal grating. Moody teenager wins staring contest. Oh, so the resistance fighter that they recovered from out in the desert, who's now going to be interrogated by the evil warlord boy, is quippy and unintimidated.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
I'm not a teenager. My voice is flat and even. I wish someone would call Kylo Ren a teenager, like, at least one time. Also, based on him being called a teenager, I'm starting to doubt the accuracy of our cover model. The fighter laughs. I was told very specifically about what was going to happen today, and the story ended with me back in my own bed. And you're prone to believing stories? Only when they're from a seer. Now it's my turn to laugh. Cold, scathing, unfeeling. There are no more seers, fool. They were wiped out cycles ago. The galaxy's free of such nonsense now. I take off my left glove first and then my right. The fighter's eyes widen, but he doesn't shrink away. He screams. I get what I am looking for. Name, Cole Paka. Home planet, Pirius. Cole, the fighter, looks up at me through wincing, watering eyes and smiles. You probably won't believe this either, he says, but the seer told me we were going to be friends. Good friends. What? You mean like in some kind of redemption arc? I place my hands on him again, needing to see more. There is no glitch, though. There's no fault in his memories. Everything stored within his head is real. The seer is in long robes. Oh, nice, they were long robes. Telling him of this precise moment. The guards, taking Cole and bringing him right here to me. And her. He's seen her. Long brown hair tied back into a complexity of knots and braids. Dark eyes filled with determination and fire. Her lips blushed and parted. Her brow creased in confusion. It's Reza. Piraeus. I've heard of it. The sand that covers every last square click of the planet's surface. Oh, they use clicks. The mantle of the planet's crust is a honeycomb. It's a nowhere planet. Unimportant and worthless. She's like me. Of all the people in this godforsaken galaxy, she is the only person I've ever looked in the eye and recognized in some way. Alright, I'm gonna move a bit faster through this. We learn that Jas is addicted to something called the light, which I guess in this universe is a drug that's just called the light.
Forgive me. I feel it again. The pull to the light.
The way the light affects me, nothing can compare. My mind wanders to places and planets unknown to me. I'm filled with power. I'm perhaps the strongest during that time, but I'm also incapable of reining myself in. His superiors give it to him in order to control him. Oh, while Cole is mocking Jas, we find out that Jas is wearing black boots, black pants, and a black cape. To my infinite disappointment, there's no indication that he's wearing a mask or a helmet or anything like that, but you know, that might come later. So I guess Jas remembers the dreams too, and he wants to get to Reza, but he can only do that with Cole's help. So Jas is going to have this kind of odd couple adventure where he's going to help break Cole out of the enemy ship and return him to his desert home planet. Sit down and strap yourself in, I command, stabbing my finger at one of the rear seats. We don't have clearance to leave. As soon as I power up the engines, the flight crew will know something's up. We're going to have to scramble. You'll need a co-pilot then, Cole says.
You need a pilot.
I need a pilot.
The intercom on the control panel buzzes, and Stryker's voice floods the cockpit. Where do you think you're going with that prisoner, Jas? I've never liked Stryker. The man was put in charge of my training by the Order of the Elders, and ever since he's made it his personal mission to make me miserable, keep me chained and compliant. Stryker is a mean, intimidating, high-ranking officer in the Construct's military force, and also in charge of training the different recruits, and apparently differentiates his uniform from other people's uniform with gold metallic highlighting. Anyway, Jas and Cole escape. They damage some of the ships in the hangar bay on their way out. And we're back to Reza. The Seer's subsidy is much like the rest of the settlements on Piraeus, a network of underground tunnels and passageways that all twist and turn, interconnecting and diverging over many miles, protected from the persistent sandstorms that buffet the planet's surface. Oh, buffer. Buffer? I don't think the book has that right. I think I had that right. So I think that all Purians are seers, and that would mean the terms Purian and seer are interchangeable. It's unclear. Darius lumbers slowly through the passageway ahead of me, seemingly unfazed by the close quarters. They're moving her to live underground, I guess, in anticipation of Jas getting here. But she's not happy about it because she's claustrophobic. Danger's approaching. You won't be safe out there. It was seen a long time ago, before we lost our abilities. The order in which Darius receives and divulges information is very mysterious to me. We stopped having visions months ago, but I'm telling you about it now. And we're going to have danger here soon, which I found out when I still had visions earlier. So you're gonna move underground now. I won't try and leave. If what you're saying is true and Jas Balar is on his way to Piraeus, I don't want to be out there on my own. The days ahead are uncertain, Darius muses quietly. I mean, they sound kind of conditionally uncertain.